This week on TWiP, getting your photographic groove back. This is TWiP. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. On this week's show, we have a couple stories to talk about that kind of round out the news that has been affecting photographers this past week, but we also have a feature story that I want to talk about. It's actually a feature topic, and that's about inspiration and how to get your groove back photographically if you've sort of lost your mojo. And here joining me to talk about these two stories are two gentlemen that I'm going to bring up on the screen right now. Let's see, where are they? There we go. All right, Mr. Steve Brazill waving like a, what was that, your prom queen wave kind of thing, Steve?
No, it was a king wave.
That was Steve Brazill with his king wave, and also Mr. Ron Pepper. Hey, Ron.
Elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist.
Wrist. All right, guys. So we're gonna get started here. Make sure you guys are zoomed in properly. Okay, so we're gonna get started. So, like I was saying, we are. This show in particular is interesting. Just a little inside baseball. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been sort of refining and enhancing my live streaming setup, and I think I got it thanks to Photo Joseph. Thank you, Photo Joseph, if you're watching. I got it almost 99% there in terms of the configuration. This is the first TWiP that we're recording with this new configuration, and I'm going to do a post about what this new config looks like later, so you guys can check it out. But in the meantime, please bear with us if you see any glitches or technical difficulties as we do the show. So let's start it off. Mr. Ron Pepper, man, welcome to the show. What is, tell us a little bit about you. You've been on the show before, but it's been a while. What's up?
Yeah, I think it was when we did the live recording at the out of Chicago, we were on the panel.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
that's right.
But this is a great show for me to be on because I had kind of been hiding out and not really doing much photography and doing very little social media, very few things like this. Just due to life. Yep. And focusing on just a couple of clients and losing kind of the passion for photography for a little while.
Yeah.
And finding ways to reignite that. So, but having said that part, I'm a panoramic photography specialist. I'm in San Francisco, and I'm really excited to be getting my groove back, and I hope I can share that a little bit.
Yeah, I know. And I'm really excited to talk about that because I think, I think most photographers over time, hit these ups and downs, right? So, and I want to kind of shine a light on that and through personal experiences for all three of us. Steve Brazill, what's going on, man? You're on the show as well.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
What is going on? I see you all the time. I feel like I just saw you on a show earlier today.
Yeah, it seems like something happened today, but maybe we're blocking it out of our memory for some reasons.
Post-traumatic streaming disorder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what happened. So just folks that may not know you, you're all over the TWiP network. You have your show Behind the Shot. You did a critique session for TWiP Pro members with me earlier today. And you're a concert photographer that knows his way around a Canon DSLR and the front and back of a stage, right? Did I miss anything?
Yeah. I do live music photography. I've been in radio for 40 years, so it was a natural progression for me. And host the Behind the Shot podcast on your network. This Week in Photo just released a new episode yesterday with Kenna Klosterman of Creative Live talking about one of her amazing Cuba photos. So go check that one out. You can go to thisweekinphoto.com, click the link for Behind the Shot and find it there.
Yep, that's perfect.
And there's the code if you want to mention the code.
Oh, yeah. Well, the code is in the episode, right? They have to get that in the episode.
Yeah, you can get it two ways. You can cheat. It's in the blog post. So if you go look at the Kenna Klosterman blog post, there is a 20% discount code. Kenna Klosterman, you may know, she's the host and has been forever on Creative Live. Mm-hmm. And I love Creative Live. So she was kind enough to give the viewers a Behind the Shot a discount code, 20% off anything that you buy. One-time purchase. It's limited to 2,500 people, and it expires, I think it's May 31st. but it's one-time purchase. That doesn't mean you can't put 20 things in your shopping cart and get 20% off.
Yeah.
The code is in the blog post. You can just go look for it in the blog post, but I'd appreciate it if you watch the episode.
Yeah. Don't be the person that shakes the cereal box to get the toy out of it before it's
Exactly.
done. Yeah, cool. All right, guys. Well, let's welcome to both of you. Thank you both for coming on. I think it's gonna be a really good show because of your insights. The first thing I want your insights on is a story that was brought to me by Steve Brazill earlier today. And I titled this story "Copyright versus Darwinism: The Agony of the Indignant Thief." Steve Brazill, since this is your story, why don't you bring us up to speed on this thief's indignitude, if that's the word?
Yeah, I found this post. Somebody shared it online, and it's at Adorama Learning Center. And I'm going to say up front, I don't know that this is not an April Fool's joke, except that it's not April.
Yeah.
But the quick summary is there's somebody that wrote an email to a photographer complaining to the photographer. And what they were saying was, you had photographs on your website, meaning the photographer had photographs on his website. And I've been linking to those on my website, using them to market myself and to sell product, etc. for a long, they literally say in the email, for a really long time. And now you've removed the images from your website, and it's causing me problems because I don't have access to the images anymore. And I may have to call an attorney. I'm sorry.
So you know what that reminds me of? You told me that, and I was thinking of this. I was thinking that would be like your next door neighbor, like stealing your Wi-Fi or your power or your cable or whatever, and then coming over to your house and knocking on the door and say, hey, after you find it and turn it off, like, hey, dude, you changed the password to your Wi-Fi. I'm trying to run a business over here.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. And here's the funny thing. When you read this article, first of all, if you understand copyright law at all, you can get a lot of money as a photographer suing somebody that steals your images. But if there is willful intent, that goes up, assuming that the images are registered, and that's a totally different discussion. But assuming they're registered and you
remove the watermark on purpose, for instance.
Yeah. You can get statutory damages if it's a registered image and you show intent. Well, they wrote an email saying we've been using it for a long time.
Yeah, that's why I titled this "Copyright versus Darwinism." Right, so that's just a natural thinning of the herd through lack of intelligence. I don't know, Ron Pepper. What do you think, man? I mean, like on the one hand, it's hard to defend this story, and I'm going to move on from this after this. It's hard to defend the story. On the one hand, the guy is stealing the images. On the other hand, how often I was thinking, I read this and then I was thinking that guy's an idiot. But then I was thinking if you see one cockroach, there's probably a few more. So I wonder how rampant is this problem of people just like going to a famous photographer's website and linking to the images or even dragging them down and then saying that they're theirs. I don't know. What do you think?
To us that live this world, we're sitting here thinking like one of my favorite old part of the Jay Leno show was when he would have the stupid criminals section on there. Mm-hmm. And this is a lot like that. So to me, it's almost just you look at it and you let it sink in and you shake your head and move on. But at the same time, there are so many people out there that don't understand that they're doing something that's not right. They're using something without the rights.
Right.
I've had people that are in the business. I mean, they're literally in the business, even though they're not photographers and they don't have a history in it. And for instance, I had someone that felt that it was okay to help someone start their business doing what I do, using my samples.
Wow.
That's what they could. And they thought that was okay. I was using the service, and that service company was helping others get started as well. That's all fine. But they thought it was okay to use their clients' work, just help their clients start new businesses. It's not only people that are really on the fringe. It's just the kind of the current trends where people are coming in because there's a demand to be filled. People are thinking that, what I do is virtual tour type things, 360 type things. Mm-hmm. And I'm always helping people start their business. It doesn't mean you can use my images.
Yeah.
There's the lines are not understood there. So there's just a lot of education that has to be done. I'm glad this one is out there because it's such an absurd
Yeah, it's a head scratcher.
level.
Like Steve was saying, this has got to be a joke, right?
Well,
This is the lady. This is
I
the
really
lady.
hope it's not a joke, actually, because this is just amazing. But I will say, I know we're moving on, but if you go look at Adorama Learning Center and read this post, the comments that got put in Reddit that they quote in this post are golden.
There are a lot of options for replacing the images.
Oh yeah, with all kinds of fun stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I like my favorite one was letting someone link to your images or finding out that people are linking to your images and then changing your .htaccess file on your server to reroute to an image given the middle finger.
Yeah,
I think that was my favorite too.
That's cool.
That must have been the winner, the Reddit winner.
That's
right?
art. That is just plain art right there.
the power of the internet.
The power of the internet. Yep. Cool. Hey, you play silly games, you win silly prizes, right? So, all right, let's move on. This next story is kind of in the same bed, but being copyright. But a New York court has ruled that, or has issued a ruling that says embedding a tweet is copyright infringement. So, or embedding the image from that tweet. I'm wondering if it's the image, is it the tweet, is it the copy, like what, or everything, or like what does this mean? Because I see, it's funny. I see these, what do you call it? Like these news stories all the time where they cite so and so tweeted this, so and so tweeted that, the president tweeted this.
Right.
Like are all these tweets now copyright? And what happens if I send a tweet out? And does this apply to Instagram? But if I send a tweet out and it has an image in it that's mine, that I own, and then some third party takes that URL, puts it on their website, and their website is, say, WordPress, and most themes, even base WordPress, will explode that URL. It'll say, oh, this is Twitter with an image. It'll explode that URL and put the entirety or at least or a subset of that post on the website. Is all that dead now? I don't know. What do you think, Ron Pepper? Why don't you go first?
When I read this article, there were so many directions to go. We don't have time for it. Where I went similar to the direction where you were going, who tweeted this in the first place? The story is that a photographer suing because his Tom Brady photo was, he took the photo, someone else tweeted it. It said someone else tweeted it, and then news organizations embedded a link to the tweet. So I'm thinking, right, who tweeted it? That seems to be the problem, because if he tweeted it, now it's in the Twitterverse, right? Now all those rules apply, and he's probably given up a lot by tweeting it. But if someone else did it, they have the right to do that. So it gets really complicated really fast, and I think it always just has to go back to, well, who has the rights to show it? And
I don't know, but social media, it feels like, it's not just Twitter, right? It's the internet. It's just like that previous story with the person embedding their, images that didn't belong to them in a page. Yeah, that seems blatant, right? These are my pixels that you're embedding in your website and attempting to make money on it. This
commercial use, yeah.
Right, commercial use. But then it's, you look at tweets in the social media universe. It seems like that's like blocking that is counterintuitive to what the internet and connecting things is all about. So now I can't put a tweet. I can't put a Steve Brazill tweet in a post on This Week in Photo unless I get copyright approval from Steve Brazill in order to do that. Steve, is that right? Is that if this is the new? Is that the new?
Again, I agree with Ron on this. This conversation could go 16 ways from Sunday. First of all, the way I read the article, the photographer didn't tweet it. The photographer put it online, and my understanding was he put it on his Flickr or Instagram, but I'm not sure about that. Somebody tweeted that picture, was not the photographer, and then news organizations embedded. And if you go to Twitter in the web client, they give you click a little downward caret and click that, and there's an embed command. Twitter's got the command right there. They pulled the embed code and put it in news organizations, and I'm sure in the news organizations thought it was fair use at that point, where a news organization, it's a public tweet. This is a weird one to me, and I'm curious. I've been dying for this conversation because I'm curious if you two guys agree with me.
Yeah.
First of all, this kind of copyright analism, right? This overzealous copyright craziness is what makes regular people hate the idea of copyright, right? It makes everything more difficult. It makes the normal thing that every person does more difficult. But a caveat to that is this guy didn't want his photo on Twitter, and he didn't want his photo there, and he created his art, and he has the right to control that.
Right.
So could you not also make the argument that this is defending that guy's rights, the photographer's rights? It goes both ways.
Yeah.
That's where it gets hard. There's already the system that's in place now says that if you're going to register your images, you need to do that before they're published, or you register them in a different way after they've been published. And if you do register them after they're published, well, you have different amounts of rights and all these kinds of things. So what constitutes publishing? Wow. Now you're getting into all these confusing areas.
Publishing actually is just any public performance of the work.
If I put it on my own website, do I have to wait to do all my registrations?
If you're putting it on a website, that's publishing it.
Yeah.
But you have a 3-month window, though. Even if you put it on your website, you have a 3-month window to register them at that point.
Right.
But what's fascinating with this is the way the judge interpreted it. There is a standard in technology called the server test. And the server test was used by the Ninth Circuit and a bunch of other cases. The server test is basically that the infringer is the person where the data is stored, right? So in this case, the image, the infringement from the server test point of view, it's Twitter that's doing the infringing. They're the ones storing the image, and they are the ones serving it up for public use. And that's what the Ninth Circuit Court ruling would have said based on the server test. This judge threw the server test out,
right,
and basically said, she literally made it sound like clicking embed, getting a code, and putting it on your page is hard. She actually said, when the process is done by coders to display the tweet as though it's a difficult thing that not a million people do a day.
Yeah, define coder, right?
Yeah, define coder.
Like you can just
Everybody
replace it
does
with-
this every day.
replace
And it's gonna
coder with
affect
human.
everyone.
that share button, then that doesn't apply, right?
Say that again?
If somebody clicks that share button, then that's not coding, so it doesn't apply.
I mean, this is such a can of worms. And I'm sorry, this is what makes the average person, the average consumer, hate the copyright topic.
Well, it's easy to overturn this, I think, or at least overwhelm them, right? Because if this goes through and it becomes a nationwide sort of thing, then imagine all the litigious Americans that will start suing each other and overwhelming the copyright courts with, hey, I saw a link on This Week in Photo to one of my articles or whatever, or they embedded one of my tweets on one of their articles and I want restitution for that. I mean, imagine, I don't know, both of you guys, Steve, chime in. Is that a possible direction that our future could go in with just, this is one of those laws, it's like, jaywalking. Come on, you're not going to police it.
I don't know. Well, again, we live in a society where you can sue over anything if you're willing to lose and eat the trial costs.
Yeah, but imagine thousands and thousands of cases like this hitting the copyright.
Well, here's the reason I don't think that will happen. Photographers don't generally have money.
Yeah. There's
So now, if they're registered, if you got a photographer based on this ruling, if this ruling stands, like me, I register my images, right?
Mm-hmm.
This ruling stands. Based on that, if I wanted to, could I sue somebody for sharing one of my tweets or embedding the tweet? I could. Would I? It depends. If they embedded it for commercial use, I might.
I wonder. I wonder from the standpoint of, okay, you are right. Most photographers don't have all the money in the world, but that seems like that would be an incentive to be overly litigious. For example, someone uses one of your carefully crafted tweets and they put it in a CNN article. Now you're like, hey, CNN has money. Maybe I can get that new GH5S I want, right? I mean,
I think that copyright is really comes down to that people who are going to pay for the rights to use an image, and those people who us photographers will ask that are the ones who are using it for advertising, using it for big time business. It's not for the sharing around social media. Those
correct.
Seems like in the long run, that's how it'll shake out. If Steve retweets my image, he retweets my image. If Wells Fargo uses my image in their marketing, whole different story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where it'll shake down. But
Mm.
then maybe a topic for another show. I was wondering when I saw the topics, Frederick, I was wondering if you were throwing me a softball.
Why?
Because copyright's all going to change, you know.
Why
yeah.
is why is
Because
why?
you have a few companies, but the most well-known one is Kodak.
Oh, right.
Changing the way this will happen using, I even hate to bring up the word, but using blockchain for
Blockchain is not,
intellectual property.
and just talk to a lawyer. But here's a good thing. Scott Kelby on his blog does Guest Blog Wednesday, and they just had this past Wednesday Ed Greenberg and Jack Resnicki.
Oh, awesome.
Talking about the changes that are actually, they kicked in February 20th, I think, to registration, where now if they're unpublished, you used to be able to do a batch of pretty much any number you want. That's going to be limited to 750 now, and you have to give file names just like you did for published images. And they touch on blockchain. Blockchain does not have a legal standing.
No.
So putting your images in a blockchain is not the same as a registration.
No, it's brand new. It's still in embryonic stages, but there's a future there.
Yeah, it's an interesting premise. It really is. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's already there and everybody should switch over to doing this thing and go after people. But I know that, and again, I'm just reading about Kodak. I met saw a presentation at a conference where they have a whole plan for this, for not only using it for the registration, but also policing it and offering to be the middleman for people buying the rights to use the usage rights for your images and the whole bit.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in finding out more about that. I've been kind of emailing back and forth and trying to get a chance to get a sit down with one of the people that's leading that up and see what it's going to mean to the photography world. And but it's all future. It's not now. It's there, but you're right. It's not.
You're absolutely right. We absolutely do need to do a specific show on that. You and I have talked offline about that whole world and kind of the gray area that we're in with regard to cryptocurrencies, blockchain,
Wild West,
Bitcoin, and as you and my nephew turned me on to, there's hundreds of other currencies besides just Bitcoin. I'm like,
yeah, but
I was thinking Bitcoin was it, and I find out
in this discussion also not only there are all these currencies, but forget that we're talking about photography. There are other things outside of currency that really apply to us. And one other one that's interesting to me is cloud storage is now decentralized. You don't have to send it all to one Dropbox or Amazon or whatever. So there's a lot of things that apply outside of the whole currency thing. And I guess I'm excited about it because it's future things, wild west, and we'll see what shakes out and what works and what doesn't, and how it changes. Hopefully, the things that make everything better stick around, and then.
Well, and that to me is one of the cool things about the time we're living in, right?
Yeah.
Technology, going back to this embedded tweet story, technology is going to make certain things in our lives easier. Yeah. Tweeting, sharing tweets, certain things like protecting your copyright a little more difficult, but perhaps registering your copyright down the road easier, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great time to live. There's so much possibility on where we're headed.
Yeah.
I also like the two sides of the coin of the fact that it makes things harder for photographers. Prices have come down, and there's so many more people in the world, in the space, but there's a lot more people in the space. People make a business that didn't exist prior to all the technology things and the internet.
Yeah.
You're not going to see interactive images online that I make until there was an online. So you've got this really great ability to make your own business, to make your own vision, do things I've never done before, but there's all those difficulties like the ones we're talking about too.
Yeah. So Ron, will you come on and do a whole show or interview with me and talk about how this stuff affects photographers and what we can do to either get ready for it? I want to know what we can do to get ready for this cryptocurrency stuff, and depending on your level of interest, right? Like, for example, if you're a photographer, you couldn't care less, but you want to, if someone's going to be licensing your images, you want to make it your licensing images from you the path of least resistance. So if they're like, hey, I want to pay and insert cryptocurrency name, you should be able to accept that, much like you could accept PayPal or Visa or MasterCard or whatever.
You ready for a great segue, Frederick?
Yeah.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. this subject we've been talking about has kind of reignited my interest in the social aspect of photography.
Perfect segue. Perfect. But hold that
Wow.
thought. Hold that thought. I did not plant that in your head, but hold that thought for a second. So,
That was
okay,
good.
that was
I've done this
good.
before, so I mean,
So what we're going to do now,
I'm coming
guys, is
after you, Steve
we are
Brazill.
going to
Coming.
transition into the feature discussion, which is, as Ron alluded to, about getting your groove back. Whether it be, how do you do that? I'm not going to lead the witness on that. But before we do that, I want to remind the folks that are participating in the stream live, i.e. in the chat room, that we are monitoring the chat. And here it is on the screen right now. I see you guys are commenting and having a party in there. So please, if you have questions, after we move out of this next segment, we're going to go into a questions and live Q&A segment. So if you want to participate in the conversation, obviously I can't read and talk to these guys at the same time, but you can see that there's your chat right there that we're monitoring live. All right, so let's do that, guys. So let's transition into the conversation on getting your photographic groove back, and I'll set the stage with this. So this is going to be like a therapy session, so get ready. So, This Week in Photo, as many of our fans and listeners and viewers know, went on a hiatus. That hiatus was originally intended to be about a month, maybe a month and a half, 2 months, but then that turned into 4, and then that turned into 6, and then that turned into 8, and then it turned into, do I really want to bring the show back? Do people really care about me doing the show? So that was a couple of weeks of me with my internal jury deliberating. The verdict was absolutely the show needs to go on, but the answer also was to retune the show to make it more exciting for what I wanted to do. I was honestly getting burned out with the old format of the show. After 500 episodes, you get burned out on anything, right? So I decided to make some changes, like doing it live like this, and bringing in a live chat room, and launching the TWiP Pro community, and a bunch of other things that we're working on to kind of reinvigorate and double down on this thing. I was either going to double down and keep doing TWiP, or I was going to double down and do something completely different. I mean, I wasn't going to go sit on the back porch. I was going to either sunset TWiP and launch something born of its ashes, or take TWiP and, turn it into Voltron and, form a giant robot from the 5 disparate pieces. I know that's nerdy, and I'm okay with it. So anyway, I want to flip it over to you two guys. So let's start with you, Steve Brazill. You always seem to be very upbeat. You seem to be very, positive about everything. So do you ever hit a point where you're not positive, where you feel like, you know what, I don't want to do this photography thing anymore. I don't care if I see another photo. I want to go do something else. Maybe I'll start building ships in a bottle. Have you ever hit that point?
Yeah, I've definitely hit that point, not long ago, actually. And it's interesting that you use the analogy of the fact that TWiP went on hiatus. When I used to DJ weddings, I was a wedding DJ for 18 years. And near the end of me doing weddings, I reached a point where it was like, okay, I need to do something. So every wedding, I would play a song at the end for the bride and groom, for me, really. I picked up, the reason I do magic is because walking table to table during dinner is what started making weddings interesting to me again, because I was burned out. And in photography, the same kind of thing happened. I reached a point where I wasn't shooting concerts often enough, just because life got busy. And then I'd go shoot and I wasn't happy with the results. Mm-hmm. And I started comparing myself with all the people out there that I shoot in a photo pit with on a regular basis. And I'm just not that good. And I literally thought at a point, you know what, maybe I just need to stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you re-envisioned TWiP and came back out with TWiP in kind of a new format, and you reinvigorated yourself. Your magic, as it were, is the going live.
Yeah.
Right? The technology part of it has reignited your passion for doing podcasting and for talking about photography.
Right.
For me, it was different than that. For me, it was the ability to actually free myself mentally of, I have to make images that look a certain way. For me, I reached a point where I don't have to take normal presentable concert pictures. You know what? I don't care if anybody else likes this. Let's shoot this show with a weird lens at a weird time and see what I can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that became my challenge, right? Now it was no longer about shooting a show. It was about all the photographers are right in the middle singing, shooting the singer. You know what? I'm going to go stand over there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to take a different angle to it.
Yeah.
And that completely changed how I feel about photography. And now when I shoot, that's what I do. I shoot for me.
And that you hit it right on the head. It's I'm going to do something different to reinvigorate myself for this thing that I love. You know, and one of the things that I took away was, you know, there's so many different aspects to photography. There's so many different aspects to, like, I'm a kaleidoscope if you look at me. You know, one day I'm a podcaster, one day I'm a photographer, one day I'm marketing, one day, you know, I have several different labels on me, which I'm okay with. But that can lead to a condition called analysis paralysis, where you have too many ideas coming at you from too many different directions, so you fail to act on any of them, and then you get a day older and rinse and repeat, right? So, Ron, what about you, man? Have you gave us some foreshadowing that you've been down this dark road before. What led you down the dark road of I'm not sure I want to do this anymore, and then more importantly, how'd you bring yourself out of it more specifically?
Well, it's funny. I don't think I went as far as considering not doing it anymore. It was more like a step back from all the noise, because I'm highly social. That's one of my favorite parts about the business, is doing those things that are social. But I got tired of the social parts that are not in person. So I kind of shut down that for a while. And there was other stuff going on in my life, and I recognized that it was largely due to that, where it's like I'm not a depressed person, but I think there was a little level of that. Like I just life started getting in the way. Yeah. So I took a break from the stuff that I decided wasn't fun anymore. And that included some shooting, but it was more like stop all the noise. Social media was kind of killing me last year, especially with the non-photography part. Like I couldn't really even go on Facebook anymore. It just bothered me seeing all the discussions there. And so I took some time off, but what I wanted to do was combine other interests. And that's what got me back into being social again. So I've been going along doing my thing, but what got me social again and reaching out to people like you, Frederick, and other people that I know in the industry. And I'm really looking forward to going to WPPI and seeing everybody next week. So it like what we were talking about before, bringing this new kind of revolutionary technology ideas to the world of photography, that gets me excited again. And that's been a nice catalyst for me. But go ahead, and I have other ideas, but
I was going to agree with you. I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah, I was thinking, that's exactly right. I don't know. It's a tricky topic, because on the one hand, you look towards this thing that you love, photography, the gear, the technique, the art, the science, the psychology, all of that stuff that is wrapped into this thing we call the art and science of photography. And when I say you, I'm talking about the royal you. So I look at it and I'm like, you know, this is my out. Like when I was doing for episodes, whatever, through 500, I was looking at TWiP as this is my therapy for the week. I finally get to do TWiP, you know, I can't wait to do TWiP, you know, or you're sad when you've done it and it's over. You got to wait till the next one. So I went from that point of inflection to, oh crap, I gotta do a TWiP. I gotta figure out what the topics we're gonna talk about are. And that was around the mindset time that led me to leave corporate America. I remember feeling that same way driving to work one day of like, or that Sunday night blues that you get when you're in corporate America of, oh man,
Monday is tomorrow.
Monday's tomorrow. We have a stand-up meeting at 10. I got to put some BS on the sheet to tell my boss to justify my existence here so I don't get axed in the next quarter. Layoffs, you know, that's what I was thinking, instead of, look at all these cool projects I get to work on. We are changing the world at this company, and no one even knows. Wait till I get this product that I'm getting ready to market out to them. That was the beginning, and then it transitioned into, I don't want to see these people. I do not want to go in here and see these people again and pretend that I like being here, you know? And that was when I made the transition.
There's this kind of phenomenon where as soon as goes out to everybody going, do I want to go pro full time? one of the things to be really aware of is that once you are committed to it, you're committed to it, and the mindset changes. Now you have to do certain things, and it means that you do it whether you're enjoying it that day or not. So it's not a hobby anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's key, by the way. Hobbies are fun. As soon as it becomes an income path, it can still be fun, but it's a different kind.
Well, you're tying money to it at that point. I think the big variable is you go from, I do this as a release because I want to and I enjoy it and it gets me away from that thing I hate doing, to I have to do this thing even though I'm good at it. I can't stop. I'm on a roller coaster. I can't stop.
Right.
I got to do this because, my car payment ain't going to pay itself. My mortgage ain't going to pay itself.
and
That dinner.
us humans have a way of making the thing that you have to do can become the thing you hate to do. And so you gotta be really careful of that and make sure that you can find the fun in it. But after saying all that, like I was gonna say, one of my other things that I would suggest to get, if you want to get out of a slump, is to, embrace the slump and go do something completely different if you have that, if you're able.
Yeah.
If it's already your living, you maybe not, but if you're not, embrace that slump, go work on other things that you've forgotten all about. When I picked up, when I did what kind of my bread and butter, just going to businesses and shooting like 360s and stuff. When I got out the SLR and the fisheye lens and the special rotator, and I hadn't done it for a little while, it's like, I can breathe again. So that was all because I just decided on purpose to just not do it for a little while.
I like that. I decided on purpose thing. Steve, I want to just squeeze this in there and to slightly change the direction of the conversation. So we are speaking under the assumption that somebody should stay in photography. This may be devil's advocate type stuff, but what if the slump that this reminds me of the Jack Nicholson movie, What If This Is As Good As It Gets? But what if the slump that you're in is for a reason and it's trying to direct you? Maybe you're not cut out for this thing and you should be doing this other hobby. Maybe you should be painting or sculpting or something, some other art creative outlet, and maybe photography isn't for you. How do you make that determination, and how do you come to those conclusions? What do you guys think?
Well, there's a couple of things, and this whole conversation, you mentioned a movie. This whole conversation has me thinking about Dead Poet Society, where Robin Williams tells people to just stand on the desk because it's a different viewpoint. So if photography is something that you at one point, or have up until being burned out, really loved, then my argument would be it probably is for you. And what you need to do is figure out a new way to do it. And that may be that, let's say you're a portrait and senior photographer, right? You do high school seniors. Maybe you want to shoot weddings deep down. Maybe you want to start doing fine art. Literally jump off that cliff and go shoot something else. Come up with a personal project. I've heard the story before and of photo instructors telling students, go to a parking lot, an empty parking lot, for 1 hour and get me 10 great images.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. This blank slate, there's parking stops and light poles and asphalt. Find 10 pictures in it. If photography was at one point your passion, my guess is it still is. You just may need to redirect it. On the other hand, how do you know if really photography is not for you? I think we all have a voice inside of us that says what we really want to do for a living, and we ignore it. I really do. Yeah. I mean, there are people who, I really want to be a voiceover actor. Okay, well, have you taken a demo tape to an agent?
Yeah.
Right? Did you actually do it? It's great to want to be a professional soccer player, right? Yeah. Yeah. But did you take soccer? Right. Did you actually go play soccer? So we all kind of know what deep down we want to do. And what I would say is what I told my son growing up. Follow your passion. If your passion isn't photography and you really want to be a water skier, go to learn to water ski. Yeah. I like actually what Linda wrote in the chat.
Yeah. What did she say?
She said, I'm an amateur who used to love shooting until I started comparing to others. Your podcast, I don't know if she means TWiP or mine or whatever, but your podcast and others lead me to a eureka moment of starting a project where it's my vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I think those are words lived by. And Ron, I want to have you chime in too, but I think one of the salient words in Linda's comment was my project, and looking at things from a project standpoint. instead of, oh, I got to go take some good photos. What can I take good photos of today? Thinking of it from the standpoint of, I want to, like a photojournalist might say, I want to, there's a homeless problem in downtown Sacramento, and I want to shed some light on it. I'm going to do a photo story that exposes this aspect of homelessness in the state capital, right? So then you have something to hang your hat on. You have something to work for, and one of the flaws or benefits in the human psyche is that we have this thing in us where we want to complete things. We have a need to complete things or to have a complete set. So if instead of giving yourself an overwhelming job of, I got to go take some good pictures so I can have something to post online and all this, instead of doing that, if you look at it from the standpoint, I'm building, it's a jigsaw puzzle or whatever, I'm building this set of things, and now I need a shot of a female homeless person to fill this block. Oh, I need the child's perspective, or I need to talk about the perspective from pets and how they take care of them, those sorts of things. So if you put yourself in a box, like I did with the stuff, my reinvigoration per se, you put yourself in a box, then it's easier to manage because you're doing it bite by bite. Ron, what do you think about that? Is that a good way to go?
I really like what you said. Something came up with what you said, because I was going to say it's a common recommendation, but the personal project is a wonderful thing to get the juices going again. I mean, I have an ongoing one of just taking the street signs in San Francisco. Like there's all these we're all in the intersections where there'd be Bay Street and Laguna or whatever. If there's a nice background, I try to make a photo out of it, and it's just like a ongoing thing. And that's cool and all to have whatever silly or serious personal projects you want. But you brought up something that I realize helps me is have projects. One of the best feelings that I ever have is when I have a relatively big project, let's say a hotel. When that gets delivered, the feeling of accomplishment is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And there's something that really works for me. So having that, because I have other things that are never finished. Like a guy I used to work with when I was a kid, he says, I was working at a grocery store, and he says, I've been stocking shelves for 20 years. Wonder when they're going to get full.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing. And some things that we all do are like that, where they just never stop. And you really need things that have an end that really is motivating, at least to me, and I think to a lot of us humans.
Yeah.
So that might be something that helps if someone's trying to find a little bit more direction in the photography, is give yourself assignments or take assignments that have an end.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
and
what was it Rick Salmon said? What was it Rick Salmon told me? Well, I think he parroted something that somebody else said, but I'm going to give it to Rick Salmon. But he said, I was talking about, dude, how do you do all this stuff? Because he's publishing 9 million books. He's podcasting. He's on videos here. He's got tutorials all over the place, leading workshops. I'm like, how do you do all this stuff? And he goes, Frederick, in his voice, the Rick Salmon voice, Frederick, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So that's how you do this stuff. So I would
and he takes a half an hour nap a day.
Like where does he
and
find
a morning
that?
and nighttime walk every day, which is amazing to me.
So he sleeps 4 hours at night, I guess.
He's got a time machine. That guy's got a time machine.
I love the quote. And again, I wish I knew who to attribute this to, but the first person I heard it from, and I will at least give credit to that, was my friend Adam L. Macias, a concert photographer. And that is, because somebody made a comment in the chat earlier about when they started comparing themselves. And that is, don't compare your behind the scenes with somebody else's highlight reel. A really good photographer is not necessarily a great photographer. They just only show you work the way they want to be seen. Yeah. They may shoot 10,000 shots to get the one that they post online. You dump 50 online, and then you feel like you don't compare. Edit yourself. And one other thing from the chat room I love, Cheryl put this in there. She finds looking at other people's shots is an inspiration when she has lost a little bit of confidence.
Yeah. So so speaking of confidence and reinvigorating your confidence, right? So other than putting yourself in a box, giving yourself a project after you've figured out that yes, this is for me, and this is not a sign from the universe telling me to get out of photography, and you're in it and you've focused down, how do you sustain that? Steve, I'll give this to you first, man. Once you've made the decision, like me, you're advising me, once you made the decision to, we're going to do TWiP and I'm going to do it better than it's ever been done before, how do you sustain the energy that it takes to keep the enthusiasm at a level that keeps the ball moving forward?
Well, if I was mentoring you,
I have a mute button.
I would tell you not to give up your day job. No, I'm kidding.
And that's the end of our show, ladies and gentlemen.
And there we go. We have a show title. Don't give up your day job.
Don't quit your day job.
What would I say to you to keep it going? Honestly, I'm a firm believer in perception is reality, right? We tend to get in a rut and we tend to feel like we're doing the same things. And that's why sometimes you just need to look at it from a different angle. You need to in everything that you do. And I'm not saying I practice this, okay? I may be the worst person at this, but you simply need to find a way to see what you're doing as fresh. There's an old voiceover story. My mentor in radio was a friend of the old Casey Kasem that used to do American Top 40, famous disc jockey from days gone by. And he said to Casey one day, is the way this was relayed to me. Okay, now this is secondhand. He said to me, he asked Casey, how do you do these commercials and make them sound so amazing all the time when it's a mundane product? And Casey's answer was, I simply look at it like I've never seen it. A pair of shoes. Oh my God. They cover your feet. I no longer have to step on rocks or thorns. He literally just looks at everyday objects as what they are, right? From a new perspective. And I think that's what we have to do with our careers and our hobbies and everything, is just look at them in a way of, what is this doing for me? And there may be a point where you go, you know what, it's not doing anything for me anymore.
Yeah, that's good relationship advice too. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Hey, don't put that one on me.
I'm just saying, I was thinking what you're saying. Like that could apply to many areas of life.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, Ron Pepper, you have anything to add to this?
Through the conversation, I keep thinking of all these kind of personal ideas that have helped me, or that I think I should help. And I'm like, what it comes down to is we all have our stuff, and then we have to solve some stuff. And once you do that, you start, like Steve said, seeing it in a different way. A couple of years ago, I had to get my diet and exercise under control because I'm sitting here so much.
Yeah.
In case anybody has any different ideas, photographers spend a lot of time behind the computer, not so much behind the camera all the time. So you get this sedentary lifestyle, and I had to change that because it wasn't making me happy anymore. So yeah. I guess I'm just realizing that everybody's going to have their own answers. And I used to say, if you want to improve your photography, just go to Hawaii. But I mean, there's that someone who goes to Hawaii a lot, that's normal now. So they've got to change something else. And there's a million things. Yeah. But something that always worked for me.
What's up?
Since the TWiP Roundtable show was going on, before Frederick was on it, going running, listening to that podcast, I always came back ready to do something new. So I'm glad TWiP.
See, my problem with that analogy is it had the word running in it.
No physical activity is allowed.
Put headphones on and go to your Zumba class, Steve. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Work on my photographer body. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm going to give you some work, Steve, because I see your name mentioned a lot in the chat room. So let's go. Why don't you take us through some of the comments that folks are making over in the chat on the YouTube page?
There's a bunch of good ones. It's like I say, Cheryl mentioned she looks at other people's photos. Who else was in there? Good Dog said that he saw Heisler at Photoshop World 2012, and he pulled this quote out. And Good Dog, how do you remember this stuff? Seriously, everyone shoots crappy photos. You have to shoot through the crap to get to the good ones. And some people would go, oh, but that takes so long and it's so much culling. And what I would suggest is, no, reverse that around. That's the challenge, right? It's actually a fun challenge to go, I'm going to find the good one in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to find, I have shows, I have concerts that I shoot just recently, in fact, well, end of last year. I'm at a huge festival, great lighting, big amphitheater. And here in Southern California, it was not Ozfest meets Knotfest. And a band comes out on stage, and I kid you not one front light, nothing but smoke. There were times you almost couldn't see a human being.
Oh, geez.
All backlight. And I'm thinking to myself, I have to find a way to tell that story. That was my challenge to myself. Some people were putting their cameras down going, this is stupid. I'm not even going to shoot. Why are they doing this to me? I'm a photographer. My attitude was, I want to tell the story of this band. What is the story of this band? Mm-hmm. Backlight, smoke, and silhouette. You know what? Let's try and make a really cool silhouette with the guy's microphone in the air or something like that.
Yeah.
You have to shoot through the crap to find the good ones. And Greg said in the chat, change can be difficult, especially when change pulls one away from one's comfort zone. That's
called change,
humanity.
Though. Yeah, that's definitely called change. Yeah, and he makes a good point, because if you're comfortable with landscape photography, but you're getting burned out on it, we're saying try something different, like put a model in that landscape, or go try some astrophotography, or do something different to add something that pushes you out of your comfort zone and back into the excited zone, because we're excited when we're not comfortable, right?
And you and I and Troy Miller have had this conversation before, and that is, photography is still photography, whatever you shoot. And I would argue Troy Miller, who's an award-winning wedding photographer, knows his gear better than almost anybody that I know. I took him to shoot concerts with me. I've taken him on a couple of them. And I remember the first concert. This is a guy who knows his gear. He knows photography. He left that concert angry because he didn't get the shots he expected that he would get. That challenged him, and he was chomping at the bit to go back and do it again. So I'd actually say, you want to find inspiration? Grab your camera. Go down to a local nightclub where you've got some local band playing, and try shooting a local band playing in a bar.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It's also, I should warn you ahead of time, it's actually really addicting too. But give that a shot, because you'd be surprised what comes out on the other end.
And do the photography before you do shots, right? Not during the photography.
Yeah. Didn't we find out from Yoda now that failure is the best teacher, or something along that line?
I think that was Tony Robbins that said that, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was the new Yodaism.
Maybe Tony stole it from Yoda.
Well, if you're going to
copyright suit,
a concert is a good place to fail at something, because that's hard.
Yeah. Steve knows. I tried to shoot a concert, and I loosely use the word tried. To shoot a concert, and you instantly find out the limitations of yourself.
It's because you brought that Micro Four Thirds camera
and your gear. No, it's not. It's because I know that was a ding at Micro Four Thirds from you full frame shooters. No, it was a
really
case
good
of
one too.
It was the case of using the right tool for the right job. So that'd be like you saying, Frederick, you can't make that cake because you're using this kind of oven or whatever. It's the right kind of oven for certain kinds of cakes, but maybe not that cake. Low light is the domain of full frame right now. Now, Micro Four Thirds is making inroads into that, but right now, if you're going to shoot that kind of photography, you need the right tool to shoot that. And what's that tool, Steve Brazill? What do you shoot with to capture
I shoot
low
with
light?
Canon. I'm a Canon shooter. I shoot a 5D3 on one hip and a 5D4 on the other hip. I use a rapid strap, double rapid strap. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, you should go with the Sony, the new Sony A7R Mark III or whatever. They're great in low light." Yeah. I haven't tried the Mark III yet. I need to. The Sonys are amazing in low light, but historically, they've had difficulty focusing fast enough in low light to make up for it. So I'm a Canon shooter. A lot of concert shooters are Nikon shooters, and there are some Sony shooters out there.
Are those things related? Like what makes it better in low light makes it more difficult to focus? Is that a trade-off?
Not at all.
So that can be improved without.
Yeah, I mean, the focus system is the focus system. It's just Sony's focus system, historically hasn't been as fast as a Canon, 1DX or a Nikon D5 or something like that. Hopefully the 3 changes that. It'd be really nice to have the lighter weight of the Sony, but right now I'm a Canon shooter.
Before we change the subject, I want to make sure that I don't get any comments that, remember, I am the polycamerous photographer. I love my Olympus Micro Four Thirds as much as my Nikon gear. So I don't want anybody telling me that I'm hating on it, because it's
nobody put Ron in a box, man. No,
it's the future. It's the camera I carry around the most. But when I have to go there's only a few specialties that we're still, I think, if you're going to do it especially at a pro level, you still need the full frame for sure. And even the DSLRs can be important. So
Cheryl in the chat has a great question. She says, she's asking, does anyone else have problems with taking the emotional attachment out when culling their photos?
I saw that, and I do.
How do you take it out? Like, is it possible? It's like your children, right?
I think you just have to say to yourself, and I've done it, right, where I cull and I look back and go, wait a minute, I still have 200 images?
Yeah. I just buy more hard drives.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep them, but for what I'm going to post, I go through detail on mine. Which one's the sharpest? Which one has the best hand positions? Which one, can I see both eyes? Which one is the mouth in the most flattering position? Because I don't want to be unflattering to these artists that I shoot. So, but yeah, I think every photographer has that problem except Frederick.
Yeah, except me. Yeah, no, it's you know what? It's interesting because when I read that comment, I think about at the beginning of the year in my house, I tend to do a culling, right? So I go through the closet, I go through the garage, I go through the kitchen and look at stuff that just needs to go that I haven't used. I do that, and I do it. I have to literally put myself in this mindset of brutality. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that whole KonMari movement where, if it doesn't spark joy when you touch it, then get rid of it. So I have to kind of put myself in that mindset. But mine is more of, does this thing that I'm looking at, have I used it within the last 18 months or so? Is it just taking up space that could be used for something else or nothing at all? So I look at that, and then I apply that to photography. And you kind of have to shift into that mindset as well when you're looking at all these images. Like, can I and will I ever touch this image again? Do I need it? Right? And just make the decision that quick that will then lead you down the path to your other more valuable images. Ron, what about you, man? So when you're culling through images, in service of Cheryl's question, when you're culling through images, are you like, how do you focus yourself so that you're not so honed in on one particular, like, oh, I love all these shots, they're great, and one day I may do something spectacular with this one kind of mindset?
Well, I would just separate it for the subject matter. If I have an assignment and I'm culling down the images that I need to accomplish that, I've got that down pretty well. I know what I need. I do something really specific. I know what I need. I know what I don't need, and I won't trash them until I'm fully done with the project. I'll just push them aside, but they will be gone. However, when I'm culling down photos of my kids' football game, not so much. I have a hard time getting rid of any of them.
Yeah.
So if there's a clear separation there, and you know what, my answer is, I get rid of them if they're completely out of focus, if they're a complete screw up, if they're whatever. Otherwise, I just keep them. I have a Drobo with an extra several terabytes. I'll just get another one when I need it.
Yeah.
And it's all,
well, there's a difference between archiving. I think there's a huge difference between archiving and stuff that you're going to actually keep in your Lightroom library and process it and share with the world, right?
Oh, I do have one thing, recommendation is, if you do archive everything, almost literally everything, like I import my images and a second copy goes to the Drobo, which gets backed up off site, blah, blah, blah. All the originals are always going to be there. So when I'm sitting there in my Lightroom library, I'm much more ready to part with images, knowing that I could always get it back. So,
yeah, that's true.
So if you're okay with archiving pretty much all of them, that'll make it easier. That'll make it emotionally easier to cull it from anything you're really ever going to see again.
The problem with that is part of that requires that you keyword properly and make it so those images are easy, or your filing system is good, or your, whatever. Stampfli Photography said in the group that the emotional part is difficult to remove. And one of the things about photography is we know what it felt like when we took the picture. We were on that beach in Hawaii shooting that sunset. So when you're trying to cull those images and you're struggling with that, keep in mind that the viewers, they weren't there, they don't see it. So as you're looking at 10 pictures, trying to cull those down and trying to thin it out, don't look at the picture that you love. Look at the picture that tells that story the best, so that somebody else looking at it does not need to have been there to understand it.
Steve, what's your culling strategy? Is it because that's where a lot of people, myself included in the beginning, where you fall down in terms of all the options that are available to you. Let's say Lightroom. Not everyone's using Lightroom, but let's look at Lightroom. Okay. You can flag, you can unflag, you can have several degrees of good, bad, ugly, whatever. You can color code it, you can put keywords on it. It just becomes like unmanageable, so much so that I decided a while ago that I was binary. It was either going to be flagged or not flagged. And if it's in a group that I've already culled to, so these are the best of that particular shoot, then I can switch the view on that group to just see the ones that I think are number one, A1 acceptable. The rest are still in there, but because the ones that got culled are on the cutting room floor, but the rest of the images in that group are still in there. But I'm really only going to focus on the ones that have a flag on them. So I go binary because I look at, like, how do you? It's like children again. It's like your children and saying, yeah, this child is 10% better than this child, so I'll give it a yellow versus a red versus a green. How do you do that with photography?
I'm colorblind, so I don't use colors.
Okay, switch it to numbers 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. So friends of mine do, but here's the thing that kind of just hit me: why I do it the way that I do, and that is because you started talking about the child or what. I think it depends partially on what you shoot, right? I mean, if you are a photographer that shoots family portraits in your studio, then any given job is a bunch of pictures of that family. Culling is different. Mm-hmm. For me, on the other hand, I might go shoot one night shooting for 3 hours, and I've got 3 or 4 different bands, each band having individual shots of a bass player, a drummer, a guitarist, or a singer. And so the problem is, as I'm going through culling, I may see a shot of, singer A and go, I like it. I don't know at that moment, do I have a better one coming up down the road?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And this one's sharp. So I don't want to forget it. So I use a star system. First of all, I don't cull in Lightroom because up until now, it's just too slow. So I use Photomechanic for culling. Can't recommend it enough. Swear by it, love it. I don't use the power of Photomechanic because I just don't really need it like a sports photographer would. But for culling, it's the greatest invention of man. I go through and I do a pass through. Anything that I think is sharp, keepable, archivable gets a star. Anything that doesn't get a star is going to be deleted, right? Then I go through my 1 stars, I go through a pass and start looking for characteristics because now I've narrowed it down that I may only have 5 shots of that singer. And I go through looking for the best one that gets 2 stars. I'll do another pass and go for 3 stars. Once I have 3 stars, those get imported into Lightroom to be looked at and edited because some of them you go, it's all red. I may have to convert it to black and white. I don't know if I can save it or whatever. As I'm in Lightroom, I may up it to 4 stars. I may down it to 2 stars. And I go through until I get that. I import those into Lightroom. I edit those. 4 stars are shots that I'm going to give the client. So the venue or band I'm shooting for. Mm-hmm. 5 stars are a portfolio shot only. Jeez. So that's my breakdown. And then here's the thing I do. So now in Lightroom, I only have my 3-star images.
Yeah.
I just resync after I'm done, have exported them and delivered them. I right click the folder, say synchronize, and it pulls all the 1 and 2 stars in at least so that they're in Lightroom for the future.
See, you and Joseph Lenashke or Photo Joseph are that you guys are meticulous with all that stuff. Like I remember one day, I don't know, it had to be like 5-6 years ago. I forget where we were, but I remember getting a glimpse at Joseph's keywording strategy. And I was like, dude, like if I had to do that at every shoot, I wouldn't shoot anymore. That's like homework after a birthday party. It was like too much stuff. And I think that what we've done is sort of revealed that there's no one right way to do it. Steve, you skew more towards the right. I skew more towards like center left in terms of how much effort I want to put into categorization.
We're talking photography, not politics, right?
Yeah, we're talking photography. Not, don't get me started. We're talking photography, not politics. But right, so skewing towards doing less and getting back to the photography versus you, present you, looking out for future you in terms of your categorization and rating system. It's two different things, and one isn't right, one isn't wrong. Stampley photography says any work he wants to do on an image is rated as, if he wants to do work on an image, he rates it as a 1. If he doesn't, then he rates it as 0. So just like me, mine is flagged and unflagged. So it's binary. Either I like you or I don't like you. Either you're with me or you're against me, right? So versus, well, there are shades of gray in there and how much I dislike or like you. I don't know. Ron Pepper, what about you, man? What's your system for organizing your images?
I'm pretty similar to Steve, where they get ranked and nothing's, if it's worth keeping at all, it'll just get a star. If it's, that means don't delete it. But it has to, I'm really similar actually. It has to get up to about 3. I get it up to 3, and then anything that's going to get delivered is usually 4. So it sounds really similar. And then I've been using, the slowest process in my whole life is importing to Lightroom. So the photo mechanic tip is an excellent tip. That's a pro right there if he's doing that. And
yeah, because you don't have to wait for previews to be created.
It's insane.
You pull them into photo mechanic and right arrow, right arrow, right arrow, 1, right arrow, 1. It's instantaneous.
A big job, meaning a job that just has a lot of files. Then that's absolutely imperative, frankly, because Lightroom, I usually do an import when I'm going to bed because it takes so long. But then once it's there though, I'll take multiple passes as well and try to keyword. And I really have been making good use lately of collections. That's a really powerful tool to start using, both smart and not smart. And then those will, because you can, for anybody that doesn't know, you can set so many parameters for something to be added to a smart collection that it can be really powerful for you later on to go back to and say, oh, right, I wanted to work on that image. So make use of those. And, dang it, forgot what I was going to say.
You know what I was going to say? I was going to say, you know what I want someone to build to make all this stuff easier for photographers? And this is, pie in the sky stuff. This is wouldn't it be cool if ellipsis file, right? Wouldn't it be cool if cameras, high-end mirrorless or DSLRs or whatever, had something akin to either Siri or the Amazon Echo technology built into them, so that not only would they know where they were, because obviously a camera of this level would have a GPS antenna in it. So not only could it keyword itself based on location, it could keyword the file, but you could also speak things or even speak a sentence that describes the scene that you want to caption or the series of photos that are taken over a specific time. Wouldn't it be great if you could just read it, like speak into your camera and say, girl in white dress on horse at the rodeo riding around while eating a lollipop or something like that, and have it pull out the keywords, stick them into Lightroom for you, and you move on to the next shot. Wouldn't that be cool? Or would you use that, Steve, if there was a feature like that?
No, I mean, I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Wait a minute. Let me take 2.
Ask
me again.
You're at a concert.
Ask me again.
No, I'm not asking you again.
Let me think. Yeah, no. Just not going to happen. I can see
I would use it. Chat room, would you use it? Come on, chat room, get behind me.
It sounds an awful lot like taking notes on a pad of paper, like the film days.
You're speaking it. It's text to speech.
So I can see me at a concert with a metal band playing behind me, going, no. I said corn, not with a C. Kits.
Maybe you have to be, someone who's adept with text to speech to use it. Unlike some age range Steve Brazill. Yeah, being able to do, I think that's cool. I was also, we're on a rat hole. We're gonna close the show in a second. But I was thinking earlier today that back to this whole conversation about the new TWiP and streaming and all that stuff. Steve, you could appreciate this. Wouldn't it be cool if, again, in the wouldn't it be cool if file, wouldn't it be cool if I could have certain things show in my live stream based on what is said based on what I say. So for example, if I say, you know what, let's take a look and see what the chat room is up to, it would keyword and hear me say chat room and switch to a chat room scene automatically without me having to do
that
anything.
type of thing I think will happen.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I love David Blanchard's comment to you, Frederick. Magic really does not exist.
Hey, that was in reference. Was that a tweet
Hey, David,
I sent out?
high five.
That was a tweet I sent out. I disagree, Dave
This is
Blanchard.
the part of the show where Frederick dreams.
No, I'm going to disagree because you can't know the unknowable, David Blanchard. I'm going to say the universe could be a multiverse. There could be a dimension where magic as we know it in this dimension actually exists. So how can you say that there is no magic?
I predict whether it works well or not. I predict that some camera will do something like you're talking about. I mean, even when I ask Siri questions now, it's hit and miss. So let's, little by little, but that will be tried. And you know what, Steve? One thing is, there's some people say they're in a shooting in a studio tethered. That's a whole different situation where something like Frederick is dreaming about might work.
Oh yeah, I could see it there, but then you have the fear of what Good Dog said in the chat room, and that is he doesn't want his camera talking back to him and telling him how bad his photos are.
A little to the right, recompose.
Yeah, recompose.
That seems
Why
an
did you
annoyance
use that
knob
focus
for
point?
your AI. How annoying do you want your AI to be?
Just like
why is your ISO at 640?
Just like when you don't make the turn that the GPS tells you, it gets angry sometimes. Redirecting. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to start telling you what to do.
Yeah. Those GPSs, they should get angry and get increasingly snotty with their comments. Like, okay, maybe try the next left. That would be killer. All right, guys, we are at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. You guys have been awesome. You made the show really good. I mean, we, as in TWiP style, we went off on lots of tangents, but I think the main thrust, how to get your groove back, we hit on. I think one of the big takeaways was to give yourself a project and dive into it and work on it. Steve Brazill, I'm gonna switch it over to you. Where can people find you and connect with you outside of the world of TWiP?
Outside of the world of TWiP, you can find me on Twitter. I love Twitter. It's still my favorite social media platform. It's at Steve Brazill. The last name is like the country Brazil, but 2 L's. Same tag or same handle on Instagram, on Facebook. It's Steve Brazill Photography. And then, of course, This Week in Photo, you can find me at Behind the Shot. And again, if you came in late on this show, let's just tell you up front, latest episode of Behind the Shot with Kenna Klosterman of Creative Live fame. She got a Creative Live coupon for the TWiP listeners. Doesn't have to be Behind the Shot fans. Go to the Behind the Shot episode. It's in the blog post, 20% off whatever you put in your cart, and use that. You can also get it in the episode. I would prefer that you actually subscribe to the podcast and watch the episode, but you can read it in the blog post.
Awesome. Cool. All right. I'm just responding to Good Dog in the chat. And Mr. Ron Pepper, who's back on the show. And again, I want to roll back a little bit. I want to convince you to hopefully come on This Week in Photo and do a cryptocurrency for small businesses and photographers if you're willing to do that in the future. Are you up for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that subject.
Cool. Awesome. All right. We'll get that on the books. And where can people go to find out or to see some of the work that you're working on and find out more about you?
Well, I guess, since I'm just getting my groove back now, don't have much on Twitter these days, but so go to my website, panoramanetwork.com is my portfolio site where it shows some of the 360 stuff that I do. It's probably the best place. I'll probably start posting again with photo focus here soon. And what else? Instagram, rpepper.
rpepper. All right. Everything's better with a little pepper on it. Just
That's
saying.
Right. That's
Just
right.
saying.
Oh, I love that.
Right? You can have that. It's all yours, man. You can have that.
Shake it.
Free of charge. All right, guys. Well, thank you both for coming on. If you want to keep up with everything in the TWiP universe, you can follow us at This Week in Photo on most social media networks. If you want a direct line into myself, these guys that were on the show, and the other TWiP hosts, etc., and a vibrant community of photographers, which many of our chat room are already in, just head over to TWiP PRO .com and sign up. There's a 2-week free trial, and then after that it's just under $5 a month to be a member of a crazy awesome community of photographers that know what they're talking about for the most part, except for when I get in there and interject in conversations. But I just want to put that in there. And welcome Ron Pepper to the TWiP Pro community, by the way. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for joining. All right. Next week on the show, I'm going to keep that a secret for now because I haven't exactly scheduled it yet. So I'm going to keep that.
I'll let you know your subject later on.
I'll let you know the subject of next week's show when I have the subject to tell you. But until then, please subscribe to This Week in Photo on YouTube and our podcast, obviously, and subscribe to Steve Brazill's Behind the Shot show, which is also linked from the main menu on the This Week in Photo website.
And drop This Week in Photo a review in iTunes as well.
Yes. Say that again.
Drop a review in iTunes for This Week in Photo, please.
Yes.
Because what it does is it helps this show become more discoverable. So in iTunes, the more recent ratings you get, it keeps the show up in the ratings, and it makes it more discoverable for people that are searching. So go search This Week in Photo in iTunes and give them a review and a rating.
Yeah, perfect. And with that, I'll say it is time to take that lens cap off. We went on lots of tangents on this show, and I would change the name of the show to This Week in Tangents, but I think that acronym is already taken. So with that, we'll just say it's time to take that lens cap off. We'll see you guys in the next show.
Good one.
This is TWiP.